The course of action a pilot will take when faced with an emergency situation is based upon his knowledge of the aircraft systems and a variety of emergency procedures for each type of emergency. For this mission, we will attempt to practice the emergency air start procedure. As on the DCS Skyhawk simulation it isn't yet possible to actually produce a flameout failure, we will simulate this emergency by cutting off the fuel supply to the engine. You are now flying at 40,000 feet and 200 knots. Be aware that, as the Skyhawk has no batteries, when the RPM of the engine goes below about 50% the engine-driven generator will stop generating electric power and all the instruments and light will go out. Level and trim the aircraft for horizontal flight and, when ready, press spacebar to begin the practice. The fuel system incorporates a fuel shutoff control lever located outboard of the left-hand console. A lift-type guard is provided to prevent inadvertent movement of the lever. Left-click on the guard to open it. This lever has two positions, normal and emergency off. The emergency off position stops all fuel flow from the aircraft fuel system to the engine fuel control system. To ensure complete fuel shutoff, move the control lever fully aft into the M or off detent, with a left click. With the fuel supply closed, the engine begins to wind down, as you can see on the RPM gauge. As the RPM goes below 50%, the engine-driven electric generator goes down too, powering off all the lights and electric devices. Don't let the speed diminish, point the aircraft on a slight descent to maintain airspeed. This airflow will keep the engine turbine rotating, in what we call windmilling. Once you realize that the engine is not providing power, perform the first step of the emergency procedure. 1. Throttle. Set to off. Move the throttle all the way back, and then left-click on its handle twice, to move it to its off position. 2. Emergency generator. Extend by pulling the emergen handle. The emergency generator, rated at 1.7 kV-ampere, is carried in a compartment in the lower right-hand side of the forward fuselage. When the generator is released into the airstream, a variable pitch propeller governs the speed of the generator at approximately 12,000 RPM, to provide 400 cycle power to the primary and monitored primary buses. Good, the emergency generator is now providing electrical power. You can press F2 to view it extended. Press F1 to return to cockpit view afterwards. Three. Fuel control switch. Either primary or manual. Switch to manual if a fuel control malfunction is suspected. 4. If possible, descend to 30,000 feet or below, at best glide speed. The recommended speed for maximum gliding range is approximately 200 knots for gross weights up to 14,000 pounds, clean configuration, and altitudes up to 45,000 feet. For each 1,000 pound increase over 14,000 pounds, increase airspeed by 5 knots. Establish a 250 knots glide. Increase the glide angle to attain the 6. Throttle. Move to ignition and then to idle. Right-click on the throttle to move first into the ignition position. Next, click on the engine start button. This step is not needed on the real aircraft, but the simulated version does require it. Once the RPM reaches over 15%, right-click on the throttle lever again, to move it onto the idle position. Now, monitor the engine RPM and exhaust temperature, both should begin to increase. Good. The RPM has attained idle level. Now you can smoothly increase throttle and level the aircraft. 8. At this point, the normal engine-driven generator is working, but it was disconnected from circuit when we deployed the emergency generator. Once the emergency generator is extended, there is no way to retract it to the normal stowed position while in flight. However, you can use the emergency generator bypass switch to reconnect the engine generator and disconnect the emergency one. Place this switch in bypass to return to main generator operation. Good. Now normal electric energy is restored and all lights and equipment is powered. Congratulations, you have successfully restarted the engine in midair and thus completed this training mission. Press spacebar to end the mission.